Welcome to episode 50 of the Rise Fitness and Nutrition Podcast. I am your host, Carlo. Today we are talking about a big legend that's in the world of nutrition and it lurks among us and your friends. Can you eat carbs after 8? Can you eat after 8? Is it gonna make you fat? Is it not? Geez, I don't know. Listen up to find out. There's a lot of anecdotal ideas and suggestions from friends of friends, personal trainer, fitness influencers, and what's not, that eating after 8 p.m., say for example carbohydrates, or generally speaking eating at night, will make you fat or will slow down your fat loss progress. Now I want to discuss with you this claim a little bit more in detail and also to review that from a sanity perspective. The first thing that I would like to ask you, have you ever heard of this in your life? Secondly, did you ever use this as a way to decide whether to eat something or not at night? Third, did you ever do some research on yourself to verify whether this is true or not, or you simply accepted it and made it part of your daily routine? The reason why I ask you those things is that, generally speaking, these type of claims are very popular and very widespread, but sometimes when you ask to the person that tells you this, if they know if this is true, if they made some research, or if they do it themselves, most of the time the answer might be no. They didn't do any research to verify if this is true or not. No, most of the time they don't do anything to modify their diet at night because of that. And 3, they simply refer this thing as, oh, I heard that, somebody told me that, which does sound a little bit of a weak reason behind that, if you ask me. To better understand the rationale, the idea behind this, I would like you to follow me and try to see things from a bit of a wider perspective. Okay? Let's make this experiment together today. What are the sources of these claims? It's pretty obvious. Most of the time these sources are social media. Somebody, somewhere, tells this claim. It's bad for your health, it's gonna make you fat, it will stop your fat loss progress if you eat carbs, or generally speaking, if you eat after 8. And this thing creates anxiety and a little bit of the wow effect. So everybody spreads the news pretty fast. But very few people go and actually do the verifications needed to understand if this is true or not. So a lot of people see the picture, see the post, and they just spread it around. And it's stuck in their mind because it kind of affects their daily life. If they are trying to lose fat, for example, and nothing seems to work, they might be, damn it, I knew it. It's because I'm eating pasta, rice, whatever, after 8 p.m. So I should immediately stop. Such situation then will have a so-called group of gurus to pop up and give you the solution. Most of the time, their solution is try to sell you something. You name it, like for example, a fat loss pill, or a fat loss plan, or a workout plan, a meal plan, any kind of BS that goes and revolves around this eating after 8 p.m. is bad. And when they sell these products, they do it with very sneaky marketing techniques. But still, a lot of people do not verify the source of their claims. And there will be somebody that buys what they offer. And unfortunately, they are being scammed. And this, of course, is an extreme. But there's a lot of people that still live by those rules and buy whatever kind of products or meal plan or what's not based on that. Then let's look at this from the perspective of a rising big trend in the world of nutrition, which is intermittent fasting. Usually, people that preach intermittent fasting as the solution to all of their nutritional issues have a eating window that spans between 12 and 8 p.m. Therefore, if you follow this kind of window, if you start fasting, you should not eat after 8 p.m. And if you do eat after 8 p.m., you break the fast. But if you break your fast, you also break your fat burning window. So supposedly you don't burn fat. So if you don't burn it, what happens to your fat? Are you going to accumulate that? Are you? And then we have another extreme. We have the keto people that want to remove carbohydrates from the face of the earth because they are inherently bad. But let's not talk about those. Let's forget about them. I have been reading through the papers and the science behind the claim that eating after 8 p.m. carbohydrates, or generally speaking, eating late at night, will lead to increased weight or reduced terms of fat loss and claims like that. And honestly, I couldn't find anything that clearly states that. But I did find very valuable points to understand what's exactly behind the fact that eating late at night might not be necessarily good for you. And why is that? Well, first and foremost, if you eat a lot late in the evening and then go to bed kind of right after, all the food sitting in your stomach will eventually disrupt or ruin your sleep, leaving you tired and sleep deprived the day after. And we know that when happens, it's harder to make the right choices in terms of nutrition because we have strong cravings of quote-unquote unhealthy stuff that is very high in calories but very poor in nutrients. Therefore, it ruins our daily calorie counter, but it doesn't necessarily add anything good for us in that sense. So that's one thing. So eating late at night, especially if you eat a lot of sugary foods or you go way overboard, might be bad for your sleep. But what about fat loss then? The point is always the same. If you have to have a specific amount of calories throughout the day, sure, if you eat all of them at night, it might be still difficult to sleep, so it might not really help. But if you spread your daily calories throughout the day, if you eat after 8 p.m. or you don't, it doesn't matter. Because if you're losing fat, you will be in calorie deficit. Now, if your calorie deficit ends at 8 p.m. or it ends at 9:30 p.m., it doesn't matter. But as I said before, it does matter in terms of the quality of your sleep. So yes, maybe if you have a very heavy dinner, you might want to go to sleep a little later, or you might want to try to have a less of a heavy dinner. But for the very sole purpose of fat loss, the amount of food that you eat throughout the day, as long as you are within your calorie range, it doesn't matter. So it doesn't matter if you have pasta or rice or bread after 8 p.m. as long as you are within your calorie range. And that is the easier way to look at it. So most of the time when somebody tells you online that you should not eat after 8, but you should take my product or my meal plan or what's not, they're giving you a pile of smoking BS because they're trying to sell you something. And I very much know that you will never recommend that to your friend. So why do that for yourself? And I also talked about this in a previous podcast. Even if you do intermittent fasting but you're not in calorie deficit, it doesn't matter how many hours you fast during the day. You will not lose weight. You will not lose fat. And that's a hard pill to swallow. That's a harsh truth because there are so many because. But ultimately, what matters is the simplest way to see things. Really, the very much simplest. Of course, there's a lot of complexity, but the simplest thing to understand is if you have a limit in your daily calories, as long as you are within that, you will lose fat. End of the story. Of course, for health reason, the composition in terms of macronutrients of your diet is extremely important. But if you really want to understand one single thing, if you want to memorize one single element from this podcast, is that if you need to be in calorie deficit, it doesn't matter how late or early you eat, as long as during the day, the 24 hours, you are within your calorie deficit range. And if you cannot do that on the same day, at least over the course of 7 days, you want to be ultimately in an average of calorie deficit per day. And there's nothing else. If they tell you that you stop eating after 8 because you need to detox your body, well, again, they're selling you BS because your body has a perfect way to detox itself, your kidneys. And that's it for today. I know it takes time and effort to understand those things, but I promise you, if you do a little bit of research and you apply a little bit of skepticism to what you hear about nutrition through social media and fitfluencers, you'll find a lot of answers. And if you like this show, please share it with your family and friends and leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcast. Have a nice week.